Welcome back to Switch to Linux. I forgot to put up my white screen, and I forgot to turn on my light. Bing! There you go. There's my jaundice inducer. Somebody had commented, the skin looks yellow. Are you sick? Like, no, just a giant yellow LED above my head. So, we're going to jump right on in. Let me move on over to here, and remember, unmute the guests. Hello, how's it going? Dan is not feeling well, so get well soon, Dan. I hope you're doing better. We are on over here. My brother is actually streaming on Twitch right now at the same time we are. Look at that. My brother is Mabus Games. He's got 2 viewers over there. Can we beat my brother? Let's beat my brother. I'm not sure if he's just... he's usually later than this. So. But let's see. We got... hello, Rumble. Rumble's like streaming, but it's... Okay, there it is. So it's telling me we got 6 viewers over there on Rumble. We got 11 over there on Odyssey. We're over on Odyssey, this guy. We got 10 on the Tubies, and who knows how many we have over on DLive because, I don't know. Not sure if that place survives or what it is. It's like the underworld zone in Demolition Man, right? The Freedom Zone, or as they called it in the in that video, the Plandopolis of the future, the Cry Freedom Zone. Yes, we want freedoms, not oppression. Very good. That's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, wanting some freedoms and not some oppressions. But anyway, better get rid of Twitch. They're not going to pay their streamers. I did see all the Twitch stuff, and I just kind of laughed about it because it's like, yeah, this is why I don't take Twitch seriously. It's there for those who want to watch it there. But yeah, Twitch really completely cut their users off. Their streamers off. They pushed out a bunch of rules, like you can't have an ad more than like some short amount of time, and you can't have certain other paid things. They've always had exclusivity. If you want to make money on Twitch, you are not allowed to co-stream anywhere else. YouTube is that authoritarian. I can take super chats on YouTube while I can take Rumble rants on Rumble. So that's no big deal. And for you guys that have given Rumble rants on Rumble, they did issue a payout. I did actually receive your Rumble rants as of the ones up to, I think, 2 months or 3 months ago. I got about $200 out of the Rumble rants, and then there's still about another 150, 200 in there, but that was from the recent one. So Rumble will hold stuff for a couple months, which is okay with me. The same thing publishing industry does. You hold things. I'm not like publishing industry does it to make sure there's no book returns to deduct against the royalties. I'm not sure why Rumble does it, other than invest the money for a quarter. I don't know. But anyway, so we are co-streaming multiple places. How are you guys doing? We got Salbu and Ivan is on. How's it going, Salbu?
I'm doing fine.
All right. And Ivan, you are?
I'm doing pretty well. Happy Ghostbusters Day.
There you go. Oh, happy Ghostbusters. Oh, is it the Ghostbusters Day? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll keep up with these. Mark said he was going to jump on, but haven't seen him, and he sometimes is late, so... we are going to move on. Of course, Red Iculus over on Odyssey says, can't believe it's been 10 years. Does anyone know what he does for a living? Of course, he's an international spy. Why do you think he's a quasi-American who hasn't left Russia in a decade? Yes, on the spy exchange program. Yes. Good evening, everyone. The Anchorage is on. Of course, that is Ivan joining our show. You can check out his videos over there. What's your latest video?
It was a short that I actually did a few hours ago about Ghostbusters Day.
There you go. All right. Over on ZTubies, we got the Commodore fan. Hello there. First we had Snowden. Now we have a military men talking about aliens in the international news. Crazy. It's crazy. It's all crazy. I'm enjoying this, guys. I have read the end of the book. I know how it's going to end. I know I'm secure in Christ. I'm just enjoying the show. Get some popcorn with me. Have fun. It's going to suck for a little bit of time, but what's a short amount of suffering and, compared to pure eternity? I don't have any issues. My solution to the problem, it's not voting certain people in. It's resting your life in Christ. Ever wonder why the media condemned Ed Snowden as a traitor, but lauded Alexander Vindman as courageous and hero? Who is Alexander Vindman?
I've never heard the name.
Never heard of him.
Okay, we have 3 guys here. Never heard of him. Fox News might be suing Tucker Carlson for starting his own show on Twitter. You know, what are you going to do? You fire the guy.
Yeah.
What's he going to do? Go dig ditches for a living? I don't think so. Go have fun with that. We got Dakota Rustler. We got Inspector Javart. How's it going there? Inspector. Don't throw me in wrecking jail. Let's see. Tails OS was the first Linux distro I ever used before the second distro, which is Zorn. Oh wow, use Tails first. That's bold. That's like using Gentoo first. You know. So when play a game is kind of boring. I'd rather just play the game. There you go. Well, my brother builds video games. That's what he does on Twitch. So he does pretty good over there. Let's see. I wish Amazon would just make up their minds with Twitch. Are they in or out? More than a cat going in and out of the front door. Yeah. When Linux desktops get back to where they were 3 years ago, I may choose to come back. What'd you jump to? I mean, sure, the Linux desktop, there might be some of them going a little bit crazier, but compared to what? The sheer lunacy of our other options. I don't know. Come back. Dude in the Ukraine impeachment. Okay, I guess. Okay. So yeah, what's your brother's?
To be a little serious about the question about what Snowden is doing for a living, he does speaking engagement via the internet, and people pay him to do that, and apparently that's more than enough to sustain his living.
Okay, so. What's my brother's Twitch? Mabus Games. Yes, it is named for a demon. Okay, I'm the Christian streamer. My brother's company is actually named after a demon. He is an anti-theist. The wonder of genetics and environmental living, stuff like that. So there you have it. Let's see. Over on Rumble, the Quantum Alpha's over there. Oi! Greetings all. Greetings. Odyssey is strange. Cannot find the live. Really? You can't? It was on the homepage for me when I jumped over. Let's see. For some reason, I don't have much faith in Odyssey. It's like it does some really good things and it does some really bad things, and I don't know what's going on. So we're gonna keep running it as long as it runs. I will be on it until it sinks in there, like Captain Jack Sparrow stepping off of the sunken boat right onto the dock. That's what I'll do. Unless, of course, they start spamming me sexually explicit emails again, in which case I will jump. But, you know, they seem to have fixed that problem. So, they will breach the First Amendment if they sue Tucker Carlson because it's a personal post on his personal account. Yeah, there you go. Honestly, having issues all day today. Did you turn it on and off again? There you go. Let's see. All right. Whoa, sorry about that. Before we get into the show today, of course, as you know, we are working with a sponsor for a couple months, and they did send me a promo computer to do a review of. Ooh, which I have not actually done the review of. I'm actually going to move to our main screen here, see a little bit better. There you go. So there it is, Malleable computer. This is the Ion A1, A01, I think. Which one's this one? Ion S1. So this is the Ion S1, which is 14-inch laptop. Very, very nice. The metal, the top here, this is the lightest alloy metal, so it feels plastic, but it is actually metal. It is actually pretty light, not too heavy, not too light. We have a headphone jack, SD card, USB 3 Type A, USB Type C. We have over here, we have a power input. We have an HDMI, full HDMI. We have a USB Type 3A, or USB 3 Type A, and a USB-C. So that is the ports that we have. It feels like a nice, solid built computer. They did tell me I'm allowed to open it up and show you guys the inside. I will do a full review on that computer. They sent that to me just to have a look at. I am sending it back when we are done. And they did not tell me anything to specifically say or not, other than, hey, make it your own for a couple days and then we'll pass it on to someone else. So that is that computer there. So malleable.com, or you can go to tlm.li/malleable. So this is actually the computer that they sent. This is a Core i5, 8 gigs of RAM. This, at least if they are giving me the stock version. Intel Iris Z graphics, and 500 gigabyte Crucial P3 M2 with Ubuntu. I might have to pass on to the next person with Linux Mint, though, because why not? Why wouldn't I? All right. So let's go ahead and get into our topic, and that is the Guardian had this article. Of course, a lot of people are talking about this. I just picked the article from the Guardian because the article from the Guardian was what people were posting up on the Matrix server. If you're not on the Matrix server, you can head on over there. I'm not sure if we are in the public directory yet at this point in time. Hopefully we should be. We're large enough now. Certainly we're not like three guys in the basement. But you can head to the website, switchedtolinux.com. Go to the very bottom of that website, and what you'll find down there is a list of the video channels and the social media channels. The Matrix server is linked in the social media channels. With the element icon, although you can use it, of course, with any Matrix client. All right, so 10 years ago, Edward Snowden. I was thinking about just talking about where were we at in our various walks with computers, technology, and personal privacy 10 years ago. Of course, I didn't tell you guys that, so I'll go first and give you guys a moment if you'd like to share some of your thoughts. So think of the world, 2013. I was a normie. I was using Windows. I believe at this time I had an iPhone. And the reason I had an iPhone is I had an Android phone, and we're back, I think it was Android version 2. I had the first edition of was it the Commando phone, I think? That like indestructible smartphone. You could like play baseball, that thing, and it wouldn't break. And it worked really well for about I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years. Then the battery started to go bad. Of course, in those, you could swap out the batteries back in those days. You could take off the back of your smartphone and put in the battery, and it was still waterproof. Shocking. But I was like, let me just buy a new phone because, get more memory. And at that point in time, phones were growing and growing. So I got a Commando 2 because the Commando 1 was good. The problem is, by that time, Google had just bought an Android, and they had put their tentacles everywhere in it. And I'd never used like Google accounts for a lot, but there was a company I was doing subcontracting with. I've talked about in the past about helping with a startup in education software. I was working for that company at the time, and that company used Google addresses as their back end. So I technically had a Google account through them. So I plug in the calendar and the email on the phone, and before I know it, everyone's beep, 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 beep. And then I got people contacting me outside of work hours and stuff like that because they see my phone is perpetually online because Google has put their tentacles all over the place. So I purged the phone, took the thing back, said this is crap, and switched to iPhone, which was a better privacy option at that time. At least privacy in whatever sense we can. So I was still using Windows because really I was just a lowly little web developer, and it did all I needed, and I had my Adobe Creative Suite, and I was happy with that. And I was making pretty good money doing the consulting work with the ed tech company and then the web design stuff. And then Windows 10 starts coming out, and that's really when I made the jump. Of course, that was about a year or two. They announced that, I think, 2 years after Snowden. So at that time, I still had an element of understanding of what internet privacy was. Like, we were raised in that era when we were told, don't put too much information online. And I really agree with that. I didn't want all of this information online because you don't know what and where it's all coming and going to. And so in that respect, what I wanted to do is say, I'm not going to worry about all of these conveniences. I would rather have my privacy. Let me have my phone to do the things I need to do and not be part of everything else. That's where I was about 10 years ago when Edward Snowden came out. But I was still what you might call an unconverted normie using Windows and not thinking a ton about this stuff. But not being a complete, let me just give everything up because a contact form said to. I certainly wasn't there. I've always been more rational than that. When you guys jumped in, of course, our FBI agent just jumped in. Didn't change anything. I don't know who you are. So hello, glowing one, until you announce yourself. Ivan, do you want to jump in and tell us about your life 10 years ago? Oh, it's Mark. It's Mark. It's not a glowing one. He's here. All right. Ivan, you want to jump in and tell us a little bit about your life 10 years ago with respect to this stuff?
Yeah, I was like yourself. I was still using Windows, specifically 7.
See, there's hope for us, guys. There's hope.
Yeah, and let's see, 13. I was in the process of getting ready to have my family's entire media archive. Pictures, slides, videotapes, 8mm film. I mean, the reel-to-reel 8mm film. All of that, getting all that converted, which I actually still have on my system. Because my parents passed away the year prior, the previous summer, and so and when all the revelations came out and everything like that, I was still using Windows, and I started to kind of get into the know of different things and stuff like that. I wasn't on Linux yet. It was like another year before I did, but I had been using it for years, through work. But I was just kind of tooling around. I mean, I've got the same printer right here that I've had since 2 years before that. And it is an HP, but it's before today's HP. Thank goodness. It's like a 2011.
The one's too old to go on the internet and get firmware.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm like, people say, I got all these problems. And I'm just like, yeah, that's you. Sorry. Not me. But but I was using Windows, and and I had gotten a Minecraft account the year before, and just kind of tooling around and just kind of getting everything. My system was in the realm of starting to get set up as far as my network goes. I had an ITX little box that I actually just discarded a couple months ago, and and so it was just kind of like the beginning of my whole venture into privacy, security, you name it.
All right, Sabu?
Yeah, so 10 years ago, when the Snowden revelations came out, I had just turned 40, and I just got in love, but it didn't get to anything, so that's another story. But in computers, I had been using Linux seriously for about 10 years at that point. And I have been using it, using only Linux for about 5 years at that point. And I was already operating packager for. I started packaging on Manjira when that still existed, and then in 2012, the year before the Snowden revelations, I started packaging for Mageia, which I still do. So I've been doing some Linux work for many years at that point, and I did not start using Linux because it was because of privacy or anything. I started it because I saw a magazine in a gas station back in the autumn of 1998, which featured a free real 32-bit operating system, and that intrigued me so I started testing for a few years, and so I started because it was a free operating system, and then later I became convinced that having freedom is important. So my involvement already 10 years ago was that I'm using Linux because of the freedom that I get in my computing, and not because of the privacy, because that's an added bonus of having freedom in your computing.
Yeah. So you're more about the freedom than the privacy.
Yeah.
Mark is having issues getting connected. Mark, check your web browser, of course. Double check all the settings. You're showing on our end as muted, but that's, I think, because I have it set where you jump in muted. I'm not sure entirely.
Yeah, it's because I think it's when there is some problem, when it can't detect you're having a microphone, it always shows as muted.
Okay. So maybe it can't detect your microphone, so check into that.
Yeah.
If he jumps on, then he'll go ahead and give him a moment to talk. But let's go and have a look at this article. Of course, this is the 10-year anniversary of the breaking of it. And this was fascinating because some things I didn't realize, just a brief summary of some things in the article here. When The Guardian was the first to break the news, and the UK government forced them to destroy all their computers. So they just passed all the information over to the New York Times.
Not all the computers. One single computer.
Oh, one single computer. Okay, thank you. I know I read that. It didn't. So it was. I guess it was the computer that had the communications, is my guess, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, the question is, though, is at the core of this is now UK, EU, other nations don't have the same constitutional protections the United States has. So this is what caused the one case. What was the guy's name on Twitter who had raised his dog to if you've ever seen the movie Jojo Rabbit, great movie. He taught his dog to do that kind of stuff. He was actually arrested and fined for that and found guilty because they do not have freedom of speech in the United States. In theory, you could do whatever you wanted with the speech. Of course, just this week, as I say this, here in Pennsylvania, in my state of Pennsylvania, somebody was arrested for reading the Bible outside of a Pride rally. So free speech is eroding away. Of course, if that is challenged, and hopefully it will be, then those police officers should probably lose their badge. But we'll see what happens down the road. The problem is, here in the United States, we have a Constitution, and the Constitution dictates certain things. And one of those is that you are not allowed to do any illegal searches and seizures. And what happened is the NSA, without any, people suspected it was happening, and people always said, yeah, this is happening, but then at the background you're like, well, what's the evidence? Well, we don't really have much, but you kind of know what's going on. It's the same principle. Do we know that Facebook's listening in on the microphones? We don't have the solid evidence, other than the fact if I talk in quiet whispers near my phone and have a Facebook on that phone, all of a sudden on Facebook I'm getting all sorts of ads for whatever I was whispering about. So you get that kind of stuff. And then people challenged it in the courts, but the courts came back and said, well, we can't actually do anything about it unless there's actually a complaint. There can't be a complaint because we don't have any solid evidence this is happening. And so it became this giant circular reasoning. Enter Edward Snowden. He finds evidence about several illegal searches going on people's systems. And in doing so, he exposed, and he didn't just do a giant document leak. This wasn't like the moron on Discord a few months back that releasing stuff just to prove how cool he is. He really wanted to do it for noble causes, and he leaked out just enough, and then the people would come out, they would counteract something, and then he'd give them just a little bit more to counteract what he just said, and then he gave just a little bit more to counteract what he said. He basically kept on trolling and giving information which counteracted the very things they were trying to say they weren't doing, that he had proof that they were doing. This caused him to be the most wanted man in the world at some point in time. He's jumping airport after airport after airport. Finally, they pull his passport and he gets stranded in Russia. So to this day, I do not believe he's ever left Moscow because he can't. Which you say, well, as soon as he does, the United States is going to charge him for espionage. But at the same time, how, under, why? Because all he's doing is, as a whistleblower, saying these are things you're doing that are completely illegal. So I wouldn't have to be doing any of this if what you're doing was legal and above board. And so in my personal opinion, he should be complete full pardon, come back, and we're going to treat you as a whistleblower and let's clean stuff up. Unfortunately, that's not the way the world works, because that's not the way authoritarian systems want, and the world wants to move towards an authoritarian system. There's my brief summary. So who'd like to jump in?
I have
a
small correction to the events. He did release everything in a single release, but he did it in a different way than the others. He contacted Glenn Greenwald and the Guardian. I think he got Glenn Greenwald to involve the Guardian, but that's another story. Because he wanted to release it to someone who could release it responsibly. Mm-hmm. They had to agree to not to release anything that could put anyone in danger. And if they read something about ongoing things that like an operation that was ongoing, they had to make sure that publishing this did not endanger the operators in doing so they had to warn the government and that we are going to release this so and so and some things that he didn't want them to release based on some criteria. So he made the safeguards in place, and he handed over a USB stick to one of them in the hotel room in Hong Kong. And once he had done that, he erased the local copy from his own laptop that he had. So after the Guardian and Glenn Greenwald got the copy, he erased it from his computer, so he no longer had. And this was before anything was published. So when their story after story was releasing, it was the journalist who released one story in now and again in order to keep the interest in the stories that so not to overwhelm people with a large dump like WikiLeaks normally do.
Yeah. Thank you for the correction, sir. So it boiled down to, yes, we were being spied on. But also if you look at the countries involved, this became what is, I don't know if the Five Eyes was established more or less before or after this. I don't know the history of the origins. But it boiled down that 5 countries were all able to spy on various citizens around the world and then freely share information between themselves to get around their own international laws and national laws. And so these were some of those issues and problems that we had seen and encountered. Mark, you're here. How's it going? Maybe.
You're muted.
Pretty good, doing well. I just got done with a job interview not long ago.
Oh, good. Congratulations. Can you say where you're going, or is that better stuff not said? That's better stuff not said on the internet. Never mind.
Yeah, not on the internet. I thought about that too. I said, I think I'll tell you after.
Sure. Sounds good.
See, you might not think good of it. I don't know.
Hey, don't worry. I got friends. I got friends who are fraterning with the enemy, and that's okay. I'm okay with that. That's fine.
It seemed like a real good company. I don't know. We'll see though.
We'll see. Yeah. So anyway, moving back onto topic. Now the problem we have, of course, is that in response to all this, and one of the things they had mentioned in here is the ultimate end of all of this Snowden stuff is that the government's decided to pass a whole bunch of interesting things that to now get around all this, to still be able to have all of the information, but not worry about who gets it. Like not worry about the government breaking the rules. So there's 2 principles that Edward Snowden brought into the public conversation a decade ago, which are still principles that we have to keep in mind. The first of those principles is called TurnKey Government. And the second of the principles, of course, I always forget it because you always remember N-1 items of a list where N is the number of items in the list. You ever notice this? The second one will come to me as I talk about TurnKey Government. The problem with TurnKey Government, even if you trust your government today, third-party doctrine, that's the other one. TurnKey Government, even if you trust your government today, the problem is, particularly in a country like the United States, where we are right on that right on that 50-50 margin. We have 2 very opposite parties from each other constantly fighting. One little sway of wind will blow the election. So it's very common. And if you look back in our country, we have swapped parties. We've not had like 50 years of Democratic run or 50 years of Republican run because people vote in the people in office to vote the current ones out. And so this happens every other election cycle where we had the Bush in, right? And then we had the Clintons in, Democrats. Then we had next Bush in, Republicans. And then we had Obama in, Democrats. And then we had Trump in, Republicans. And then we have Biden in, lunatics. And then we're probably going to have some form of Republican next. Whether it's Orange Man bad or Florida Man bad, or whether it's somebody else, just the way the politics tend to work. And the problem you have, what Edward Snowden introduced, is the concept of turnkey government, which means that if the government comes in and all of this data background is collected, and they have it. Even if you trust the government now, because your guy's in office, when the next government gets in and has access to that information, then they will not. They could do something more nefarious with it that you don't necessarily want them to happen. So that's the problem with turnkey government, is that we have to worry about the fact that even if you do trust the government now, will you trust the government in the next transition of power?
Yeah,
Many
because,
No.
because any Western, any
Never.
modern democracy is just one election away from becoming a dictatorship.
Yeah, and that's the factor there. Ivan, anything to jump in on turnkey government?
It's crazy stuff. It's like you were saying, with we have one party here jumps to the other party, goes to the other party, and just like and it's like, of course, I'm in the environment of Battlestar, and there's a line that they say all the time, or towards the end of the series, is the more things change, the more they stay the same.
Yeah.
And I fully agree with that comment.
Yeah.
It's controlled opposition at its finest, and what it ends up. Well, regardless of any politics, I feel like anytime you can keep your data out of the hands of governments, period, and some companies that are untrustworthy, like, I don't know, tech giants and social media in particular, to name a few. Anytime you can minimize or limit the amount of data that they collect on you, it's best.
Yeah.
There are certain companies.
Well, we're going to get to that in a moment. You're crossing the lines in the next one. So hold that thought. Let me introduce the next topic. So the second area is third-party doctrine. This is also something that Snowden brought into the public conscience. Third-party doctrine means that while in United States law it is generally illegal for the government to just do mass harvesting of your data, it's not illegal for a company to. And then the companies will just turn around and sell that data to whatever companies want to buy it. And it turns out that most of those are government entities. Now, some people are trying to pass laws to restrict the sale of information to government, saying a government may not buy massive databases. But we don't have those such laws at this point in time. So the third-party doctrine says, well, the United States government cannot gain information on you directly without specific warrants, cause for specific cause. At the same time, a company has no such restriction, but then the government can just go to the company, the third party, because you're agreeing to the terms of conditions to giving all your data to Microsoft or Google or whoever, that giving that information up, now they have the data, they can do with it what they want. And what they might want to do is make some money selling it to a third party, and that third party happens to be the government. So the government doesn't necessarily need the warrant to gain your information. They just go to Google and say, hey, what do you got on this guy? And then it's up to Google. Now, sometimes if they just go to Google and be like, hey, give us everything you have on this guy without any real subpoenas or just causes, more often than not, Google actually says, go pound sand. But it is easier to extract the data from Google than it is to extract the data from a judge. That's the fact. And that's the thing we have to worry about. And this is going back into Mark. Go ahead and take over what you're talking about, Mark, because this is why we have to do what Mark's saying. Go ahead, Mark.
You're muted.
Are you there? Oh, he's still muted again. I can't see him right now. So.
I remember I was saying you have to limit what data you give out to these companies to begin with. Now, if a company is trustworthy and one thing I look for is when I go to a website and it's a new service, for example, I look for like SOC 2 compliance, PCI DSS Plus and stuff like that, that are compliance regulations that companies have to meet regarding harvesting data or you're using your data collection and using your data. And in the U.S., unfortunately, there's not anything like GDPR. So the best thing we can do, we can dive into our settings. Am I going too far?
Okay. No, go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, okay. you want to really be careful with what applications you install.
Yep.
You want to make sure that your settings are set in such a way in your individual apps and in your Android or Apple device that it's not giving out too much data. That's a little buried at times, and you have to kind of research and look for it. But it's fairly easy to get to. There are things you can do on Apple to limit data retention and stuff. I would stay away as much as possible. I'm such a hypocrite for this, but I'm actually going through and deleting it. Health data is, from what I understand, Tom said that has really loose regulations and it can be harvested and sold.
It has a lot looser regulations than we think.
Yeah, which is not good.
Yeah.
So, like right now, I'm going in my iPhone because I did a stupid, and I'm gonna delete all my health data. Apple lets you do that now.
Well, no, Apple lets you think you've deleted it.
I don't know. They might keep you. They might keep more than I want to keep.
They have a backup of it all on the server, and they, like Facebook for a long time. When you deleted a post, it was all still there. It was just flagged user deleted, so don't show it.
But at least it's kind of out of plain view. I guess.
All right, Salbu, do you want to jump in on third-party doctrine?
I don't really have anything to talk about.
All right. Ivan, anything to talk about here?
Yeah, I just don't happen to like it all that much because it's just kind of like, hey, if this guy can't get it from this guy directly, oh well, here in the States, it's like, oh, we'll get it from this guy here because it gets all sold to them. I think it's a I can't say sick, but it's a twisted way to get what you want through somebody else. But in the end of it, it's just like it's all about commerce. Who's going to make a buck?
Yeah. Okay. So I wrote down 4 principles here as Mark was talking. I wrote down 4 principles. Some of these were things he was saying. Just what can we do about it? What can we do to limit third-party doctrine and turnkey government are the 2 things that we want to be careful of the most. What can we do to limit these? First, turnkey government is best fixed by not giving them the information. But that means we have to satisfy third-party doctrine. We have to make sure that we don't have data to give. That's the important part. And that's where Linux and FOSS software comes into play because we know what it's doing. We can audit. Even if we personally are not the ones auditing it, trust me, somebody's out there auditing the code. And you can always learn programming and audit it yourself if you are so inclined to do that. So here's 4 basic principles I wrote down here to protect yourself from the authoritarian data collection schemes. Point number 1, privacy policies are a joke. They are required to be there. Basically, all privacy policies aren't anything like, this is our privacy policy. It's like, this is the legal mumbo jumbo that declares what we're doing with your data. It's not has nothing to do with privacy. It has to do with what we're going to do with your data. We're simply disclosing to you that we're going to do X, Y, or Z with your data. Therefore, we are in compliance with the law. So,
which
the absence
is
or presence.
Useful.
Well, the absence or presence of a privacy policy is fairly irrelevant. The problem we have is that when you have a privacy policy, you do want to skim through it, if not read it word for word, skim through it. You want to look at the overall principal things. So, for example, System 1, which for some reason Start Page works with System 1. I have no earthly idea why. System 1's privacy policy is one of the worst privacy policies in the industry. They literally say in there, we will collect as much data as we can. We are buying more data from other sources. We are augmenting the data. That privacy browser, is it Eufy? No, is it Huli? I don't know. The privacy policy, the privacy policy that sounded like or looked like EULA, what I think is pronounced WULA, their privacy policy of that company actually talks about doing the same thing. Augmenting the data with other things. Okay, not exactly privacy policy. But look at the privacy policies because at least it's going to give you a better idea. Do they have things in there like, we don't collect any more data than is necessary? Or do they say like, we're going to augment the policy with every other source we can possibly line it up with? So it's worth looking at them for the services you're using. But number 2, you personally want to minimize the sharing of all data. Every piece of data that you do not have to share, you do not want to share. This is why I don't use Windows. This is why I don't use stock Android or stock Apple, because there is no way to limit the amount of data that these companies are sharing or whatever else. So you want to minimize the sharing of data. And the reason you do is, even if the company has the best privacy policy, even if the company has really good security, there's 2 giant holes in every company's security module that we have to be aware of. Number 1, we have to be aware of employees, and number 2, we have to be aware of contractors. Employees generally have more access to more services and systems than they need access to for doing their job. I talked about this when I was doing the ed tech startup. I had access to every child in the United States and Canada's K through 12 education grades who used our network. I had nothing to do with the K through 12 school system, but I had access to all of their grades, all their social security numbers, their schools, other information in there, because I was a person that needed access to the database for one small part of my job. There was no way to limit my access. If I was an unscrupulous person, I could have been looking around, but I never did. But you ask certain employees about that, they might take a few bucks under the table to do that. The second is being aware of contractors, because contractors oftentimes have worse security protocols than employees do. The companies just bring in the contractor. They do whatever they do. It looks like it works, but it's just a bunch of Band-Aids over gaping wounds. And then those things seep over and all sorts of chaos ensues. So that's how you protect yourself from third-party Doctrine, and protecting yourself from third-party Doctrine also protects yourself from TurnKey Government. Because if they go in and be like, give me a geofence, Google, everyone here, guess what? I can walk right in the middle of that geofence and I'm invisible to Google.
Yeah.
That's what you need to do.
I remember someone, I don't remember who, but there was someone who said that regarding who can access your data and so on. And he said that don't put on your phone things that you do not want to be published to the whole world on the internet.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Amen to that, because they'll figure it out. All right. Any other final thoughts on Snowden and data and what we should be doing? If not, we're going to run through comments.
Yeah.
One of the things that people can do, which is becoming easier and easier these days, is that it's increasingly easier to flash your phone with another operating system on the phone to use. On computers, that has been the default for about 50 years. And for phones, it's starting to become more and more easy.
Yep, absolutely. Mark, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think the U.S. really needs to be working in the Trump administration, and I think he might be working on some of this stuff. I vaguely remember him talking about privacy and stuff, and that he had some plans for it. Maybe I'm wrong.
But, I think he had mentioned it to
briefly.
He had mentioned it a few times, but there were as much as I think Trump overall did a decent job policy wise. Yeah. The problem is he had a lot of shortcomings as well. One of those shortcomings was fast tracking the
vaccine,
the stabbiness. The other one, though, that is inconsequential to me, because that's something that was foisted upon him at the last possible second, being surrounded by incompetent narcissists. The biggest problem I had with Trump is that he ran first and foremost on a platform of stopping the revolving door, and the revolving door got worse. The revolving door is that people in the FDA would leave the FDA and then get a job at the pharmaceutical companies, and then people leave the pharmaceutical companies and go get a job at the FDA. And so you had this constantly revolving door of people moving between high levels in the pharmaceutical companies and high level in the regulatory agencies, literally giving kickbacks to themselves and each other and their friends and their buddies and their coworkers and their former coworkers, that was one of the biggest things he needed to stop, and that is exactly why we are left in the bad situation we are. If he actually did that, solve that revolving door policy, we would not be in the agency regulation system we are in now. That is the biggest thing that he completely failed on, because he ran on that and it got worse under his administration. And those are the things we have to keep in mind, and that's why you got to keep the government out of it.
Trump's tax policy was probably better than the actual GOP policy that got passed.
I don't know. I don't want to devolve into politics at this point.
Right,
time,
I don't either. Really,
we're going to jump off of that topic.
What I was saying is that whoever takes office, this next administration, once we get through all this, no matter who it is, I don't care, Democrat, Republican, whatever, they need to come together and work on getting something like the GDPR in place. However, something much better. Yeah. Because the GDPR has major issues. But I just want to say at the end that they need to be working on something like that.
Yeah, we're getting this patchwork of similar plans like the California and Utah. A few different states have them. We need something more, but the problem is all of these are going right back to those privacy policies. They are only about open disclosure, not about what you can and can't do. Until we have a policy that specifically says you may not collect any data that is not necessary for the thing you're doing, and you may not sell any data, any third party. That is the thing that needs to happen. We need to immediately and retroactively ban all of these giant data brokers in the background that none of us even know who they are. That's what we need to
do. Talking about that, what needs to be happening in the US is what has been the law in Norway for many years.
Yeah. Go ahead and explain how it works, Salbu.
Yeah, so in our country, there is some changes coming due to the new spy requirements, but that's another story. The ISPs and the companies, they are not allowed to gather data, any more data than is necessary for them to fill out a bill and send you the bill. And when they are no longer need for the data, they are there is a demand, there is a requirement of them to erase the records. And generally they keep a month worth of records of anyone for the minimal amount, and which has often been they connected to the internet and what times, and in order to ship a bill for the users of the service. And when the bill is sent and it's paid, then all the records up until the next point is it needs to be erased.
Yeah, and that's what we need to have, is we need to have stronger laws about what they can and cannot do. We need to ban the data brokers, because look at our system right now. We have constant hackers, constant leaks, medical databases, insurance databases, all this stuff's leaking out. Yet at the same time, like fools, our government keeps on wanting everything inside of these databases. And the problem is that A, they're incompetent, but B, they don't realize that the danger that is for the citizenry, but the real problem is they don't care. And that is why it is up to us to minimize any amount of data that we have out there. And that is why Linux will help you with that. FOSS software is going to help you with that. Modding your phones is going to help you with that. Now, you might say, well, this is difficult. This is technical. Welcome to the world. We are in a form of spiritual battle, and you have got to get familiar with your weaponry. And that is going to be learning how to flash operating systems on your computers. It is not hard. Trust me, it is not hard. I do it like 3 times a week. Okay, it's not hard. So
just start somewhere and work your way up. Improve your knowledge.
Okay. I think what we're going to do here, just so we don't run out of time, we're going to jump over to comments. And Ivan, I'll give you a last word since you were quiet for the last section there. If you want to jump in anything else, you good?
I'm glad that Snowden came out and exposed it all out as far as he did, and it made me aware that X was being collected, everything like that. It just kind of made me aware that, okay, I have to be careful. I have to make sure I'm really careful and that I proceed in a more educated kind of way. And it more or less, let me know that, okay, here's what you can do to try to be safer, more secure, more private. And but in the end of it, it's my responsibility to venture forth and take care of that myself, because I'm the one responsible, because it's about me. So there you go.
And one more final point on because all these leaks that the big data dump that he shared with the Guardian and Glenn Greenwald, he didn't want to do that. It all culminated with the chief of the one of the three-letter agencies. I think it was the CIA, but I'm not sure. Was in Congress and was asked by one of the senators if they are gathering intelligence on U.S. citizens, and he said no. And Snowden was watching this hearing because he was interested in what came out of this, and he knew that, oh yes, we are spying and we are doing this and that.
Yep.
And if the chief of the CIA had simply answered truthfully that they are, but not divulged how they are doing it, he would not have released anything. But the fact that he was lying to Congress was the straw that made him, I need to do something. And then at that point, he started gathering documents and so on over a few months.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so let's check in on comments again. If anybody sees any comment you'd specifically would like to read, go ahead and read it. I'm gonna start over on Rumble, I think. See if there's anything going on in Twitch anywhere else. Nope. Okay, so Rumble. Go on, Malfa. I don't think we'll align with Matrix ideology much. Really? I don't know. Let's see. Maybe we're just too wild. There you go. 2013-ish was when all this started to change for sure. Now we have people in the news telling us to stop using critical thinking skills. Yes, you remember that, guys? Not too long ago, there was an article. Was that Atlantic? I think that was another amazing story out of the Atlantic telling people to stop using critical thinking. Stop using critical thinking. Just do what we say. Great. How wonderful. That was right up there as one of my favorite headlines. I think that was Atlantic, right? If somebody wants to fact check me on that one. From the same periodical that brought us Georgia experiments with human sacrifice. Talk about like opening the economy. Well, at least the rest of the world was experimenting with human imprisonment. But, let's see. Started using DuckDuckGo in 2011 and never had Google accounts. We were using Bing before that. Never had a phone until I was 15. Even then had a flip phone. Man, you must be young. Such things didn't exist when I was 15. The internet was like in its infancy. Like, I grew up without the internet. We were the last generation to grow up without it, and I say it's way better without it.
I even grew up without a TV.
Better.
Yeah. Well, at least the TV existed when you were young. I think can help is minimizing the use of big tech systems. Yep. Problem is, no matter who's in office, they won't give privacy bills or laws because it's beneficial. Correct. It is beneficial for them to have it. Live chat feels like a classroom with noisy kids.
Yeah.
My first
we got 20
technology.
on there. We got 24 watching over on Odyssey. Let's check out Odyssey comments if I can figure out where it was. Okay, let's see. Dell refurb. Yeah, I usually buy Dells personally, but they're very fixable, very repairable, and cheap, and that's what I look for in a computer. IBM ThinkPads, so Lenovo did finally get their act together after the BIOS backdoor debacle. Yeah, there you go. A lot of newer lappies are garbage unless you spend over $2,000. Well, I don't know, Instigator. This Malibu computer here starts about $1,000. It looks like it'll be pretty good. My Ryzen 5 laptop is an amazing machine, and I paid $150 for it at a pawn shop. Let's
I
see.
built mine out for 1,200. It does real good.
Let's
It keeps
see.
pace with any modern computer.
Bad
Pretty close.
acting. Foreign government gets info, then shares it with the Five Eyes program. Yep.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Five Eyes, it's just another way of mentioning those 5 nations. So the Five Eyes program may not be very old, but the Five Eyes have always been those countries, and they have been sharing information for a few decades.
Yep. Let's see. A lot of states have made gold a legal currency over the past 3 or so years. Huh, that's fun. Cell phones
cool.
didn't exist when I was 15. Yeah. Let's see. Over on Z2B comments, Snowden leaks were necessary and he is a hero, is what Nathan says. Nice looking computer. Yeah. I have not even had a chance to boot it up yet, and I'm hoping to do that very, very soon. If not, I'll record all the footage I need on like Saturday for a video. And then I'll give you guys a review of it, and then I'm going to send it on because like I have an extra box in my van. Like I am in such a small spot, it's actually inconvenient for me to have this extra computer floating around as small as it is.
Oh, jeez.
So, but yeah, we'll get there. Comes with Fedora A. No, that's it's Ubuntu is pre-installed. Did I say Fedora? I didn't mean Ubuntu.
I think you said Ubuntu.
Okay. Yeah, not my favorite either, but I should swap it over to the Linux Mint. Pass on the next guy the Linux Mint. Switch to Linux was here. Sprinkles, greetings. Stream start early now. No, just a Thursday one. Let's see.
Yeah, one of the things that you should test in the new laptop is the opening menu, and because I'm pretty sure that because they are installed Ubuntu on it, they have used the OEM install option. So whereas Debian and many of the big distros do not have that option.
Mm-hmm. Well, it was sent to me from the previous person that reviewed it, so I'm not sure. I'm imagining it's unless they reset it with another OEM install. I don't know. So I have not pushed the power button yet. So hopefully it boots up because I've had it for a week and I haven't touched it yet.
Yeah, so you should record it, even if you don't end up using the footage. Record it, and maybe you can show people that this is what happened when you.
Yep, we'll see what happens. Facebook really is listening, even though the microphone indicator is not showing up, even on iPhones. Yep. Wish MSI was more Linux friendly. My board, my motherboard here on this computer I'm streaming on is MSI. I don't have any problems with it. Let's see. I went explicitly with MSI because my previous motherboard was Megabyte, and I thought Megabyte sucked. Megabyte was a pain in my bite.
I mean Gigabyte, yeah.
Gigabyte. Thank you.
I'm not a fan
Gigabyte.
of Gigabyte board.
Yeah, it was a pain in my Gigabyte.
I find the pins on Gigabyte boards for the CPUs to be even more delicate. Maybe that's just me, but
which one has the pins on the board and which one has the pins on the processor?
Intel has the ones on the board.
On the board, yeah, because I run AMD, so mine doesn't have pins on the board for the processor.
I just
I think it's better to not have them on the board.
I just browsed through one of the Matrix channels, and about an hour or 2 hours ago, there was a discussion between two people about someone recommending not using a certain browser because there is, in their opinion, was too long between the release of the Chromium-based browser and the releases between Chromium. So if you use it for too long, you may be exposed to various Chromium bugs. And the other person replied, "But what if I want to want the adrenaline of surfing dangerously?"
Okay.
You want to live, not just be safe.
Yeah. All right. We scanned through the comments. I didn't see any major ones I wanted to cover there. So we are going to wrap up here. In 1 hour, we are premiering a video on the Christian channel. Of course, we have been going through the Old Testament prophets, and we are continuing with the book of Amos. This is quickly becoming my favorite minor prophet. So if you have not been following along on that, you would like to, go and do that. If you do not care at all about Christian content, well, go ahead and give that one a skip, or check it out anyway if you want to. But just that's Christian content over there. This book's really getting fascinating. So you can jump on over there. That will premiere at 9. I have decided for you guys that like the streams, I just don't want to live stream that late at night right now, because Thursdays I'll say I have to do the news, and so it's just like, yeah, I don't want to live stream, get done at 10 o'clock, and then still have to do several more hours of work for the news. So I'm giving myself an extra hour here. So just by premiering it instead. So that'll premiere in 1 hour on the Christian channel. Amos, chapter 1, verses 2 through 15. The nations are under judgment. With that, we will see you guys tomorrow with the weekly news roundup at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is exactly right now, tomorrow on this channel. Streaming multiple different places. Any final words from anybody? Very brief final words.
Live long and prosper.
There you go.
Good hunting, everybody.
All right. See you guys later.
See ya.